Awesome. All right, guys. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Um, May 17th, and we're doing pricing strategies. This is honestly a bit different than what I normally do. Interestingly, I never really thought of doing something like this, partially because you guys are my competition. I mean, if I'm to be very blunt about it, and I know you guys feel the same, but at the same time, we're all collectively, collegially, a profession. We do look out for one another. And I think that we do face a common problem insofar as many of us, particularly those of us who are very junior in our careers, but also those people as we're going through it, feel price sensitivity is the issue of the day. And that many of us face a continual discussion as to why it is our prices are what they are, and basically achieving some form of reasonable price proves to be quite difficult in the general practice of a real estate conveyance lawyer. So I'm here to talk you through a bit about my strategies in having overcome that. I'll give you a bit of my background. I don't know how many of you are familiar with me, but I actually built out, I guess, what is now probably the largest real estate conveyance operation in Ontario. When I left, it was amongst the largest. Yeah, I built out Access Law, which was partnered with Walmart and Loblaws. And when we first started out, actually, we're based on very cheap pricing at volume, which, by the way, we discovered was not an immensely successful strategy for professional services, partially because professional services requires significant oversight. And as you scale, that doesn't change. In fact, that increases. We came to realize the value in properly pricing product. I built that to a significant degree. I think I did over I did well over 75,000 deals in my own name. Probably over 50,000 deals in my own name is probably better. Simply because every deal was done in my own name as we were at Access and as we expanded out. By the time I left, we had 72 employees, 13 offices. Access Law is a significantly smaller geographic footprint at the present time, but is actually a higher volume. Interestingly, the person who runs it now is my former business partner. She's a maven. She's a miracle worker, and I have nothing but the best to say about Lena. And she's really taking it in stellar directions. Anyways, point is, I had some success in building out a volume-based practice, and now I run a practice that does about 80 to 120 deals a month on average. Probably closer to 80, frankly, if I'm to be blunt about it. But we do pass the 100 mark routinely. And I price well for each of those files. And so I'd really like to address how I do it. It's all well and good to say to someone, price high, just you're worth it. Well, that doesn't do anything for any of us. We understand what it's like to have a mortgage to pay and a family to feed. So let's, without further ado, go into it. So let's first highlight the problem. And in the back of your mind, you already know this. You went through 8 years of school, bar exam, endless pressures, and yet there's a realtor sitting there making 5% on a $5 million deal, where you're having an argument with your clients about charging an extra $200 or $300. What the devil is going on? And if any of you do not have that experience in your day-to-day practice, then please leave this session now. I suspect you've already overcome whatever problem it is, but this is pretty common in the conveyance space. And by the way, thank you to ChatGPT for making my job so much easier in creating images these days. These things are a pleasure to actually put up nowadays. So I'm going to talk about three primary reasons why this is so, and three primary reasons that lawyers can overcome this disadvantage. And I'm going to point out a simple difference between the way lawyers and realtors who are making much more money per transaction approach their transaction. A realtor at the get-go says, "Thank you very much. This is how much money I'm going to make." There's no surprise. I mean, it's astounding, the actual dollar figure that is created. But at the end of the day, they are very upfront with exactly what their costs are. Lawyers are not. And that is to our huge disadvantage. And I'm going to talk about the biggest reason why, and then two other major reasons why. The first is that people do not properly identify what they want. And I'm talking about the consumers. And lawyers are thrown by this all the time. There is a famous apocryphal expression done by Henry Ford that said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. I love that expression. It actually turned out not to be Henry Ford that said that. It was a biographer, but whatever, I'm going to attribute it to him. And what that means in practice is that if you ask people what they want, they often have a tendency, even when they're trying to give you the right answer, to give you the wrong answer. People's actions speak to what they want, not their mental cognitive state. In fact, there is a gentleman named Rory Sutherland, who is the vice chair of Ogilvy, which is a marketing company. And Rory Sutherland talks a lot about this. And he talks about how you can only derive what people want by their actions and not necessarily by what they think they want. He has a very famous example. I'm going to start with that example just before I get into how this affects us and how we need to act. There was this is totally from Rory Sutherland's books, but there was a railroad in London or somewhere outside of London. And the British Transportation Ministry came up to the conclusion that it required £6 billion to upgrade the rail track, which would save everyone a collective 35 minutes per day. And went ahead and did it. And Rory Sutherland was hired, and he said, this is ludicrous. For 1/1000th of the cost, we could put Wi-Fi on all these trains and make people's experience more pleasant. He's like, for 1/100th of the cost, I could hire every supermodel in Europe to appear in bikinis and serve Chateau La Trousse up and down the aisle, and people will want the service to be longer. That is to say, asking the question does not necessarily derive the ideal solution. The ideal solution is often found through intrinsic thought and experience. So let's talk about how this relates to us. Let's get down to brass tacks. If you ask people what it is they want, they will say lower price every time. And as a result, almost every single lawyer that is here has internalized that pricing is important, but they're actually not absorbing the proper lesson. And my practice to date of 25 years suggests to me that what I'm saying to you is the absolute God-given truth. They do not want lower pricing. They're paying 5% to realtors, despite the fact that property values have gone up 2 or 3 times in the past 10 years. They're still paying 5%. What they want is pricing predictability. And what lawyers provide is anything but. Because you see, the lawyer that provided this disbursement list said to someone originally, my fee is $750. Okay, this is an exceptional sort of list, but they said my fee is $750. And how much is the consumer getting at the end of the day? $3,955. Now, sure, there was a retainer. And sure, the retainer went ahead and detailed that there were a whole bunch of extra fees and disbursements and everything else, but never, ever, ever was that amount disclosed to the consumer in the way that a realtor is disclosing 5%. And so, you know, if you're paying $1 million, you're paying $50,000, because that's what happens in the end consumer's mind. All they care about is how much am I paying? And what lawyers are doing is the absolute worst tactic a business can do, which is they are not telling people what that amount is. Now, I can hear you all. I can hear you each saying, thank you very much, but my files are so different. And how do I know what these things will cost? Guys, every person who does that, and you only hear that from lawyers, by the way. You only hear that from lawyers. You know why? Because lawyers were never, ever, ever friggin' forced to take statistics in school. That's the reason. It's because in undergrad, they took political science and history, speaking from personal experience. And in law school, they took law. And never once did they take statistics, because had they taken statistics, like every other person who's taken a math course at university level, they would know that there actually is a medium and a mean. And they would know that there is a way, if they actually went through their files, of deriving what their average cost per file is. They would know that. And what that means is that, yes, some files take more work and some files take less work, but on average, they're making X. And why does that matter? It matters because if you actually take away the surprise of pricing, you will find that people's reticence to pay your fees goes away as well. What we say at our firm, what I've always said at our firm, at Access Law when I was running it, and now here, I basically say, sorry, I apologize. I basically say, I will charge you X, inclusive of all costs, everything. And this is the only amount I'm going to charge you for this engagement. And this is the only amount that you're going to see on your final invoice. Any additional charges that I have, because sometimes that comes up, sometimes once in a while, there's huge expenses. I say to them, we will specifically discuss it with you. It's incredibly irregular. My lists are on my website, but we will make sure you approve each and every one before we incur them. Other than that, you can count on the fact that this is the amount you're going to see on your final invoice and nothing more. For my clients, I don't even provide a statement of account. My trust ledger is sufficient. And the reason it's, I mean, if someone asks for a statement of account, obviously I provide a statement of account. But why? Because on my initial retainer letter, I have said to someone exactly to the penny amount that I am going to charge them at the end of the day. And that is all I ever charge them. Now, let me tell you what the advantage is of this, because it's incredibly powerful. You may understand the concept of what I'm talking about, but I don't think you quite appreciate exactly how much people crave price predictability. Because there's actually a 30%, this is from my experience alone, it's not based on data, but I have thousands and thousands of files to back this up. There is a 30% predictability premium that people are ready to put into their pricing. So not only can you discover what your average cost is per file or your average profit needs per file, and thus your average pricing per file, but you can price a 30% premium above that, and people will be pleased to pay it. Because unlike every single one of you, my competition who are on this today, who are sitting there saying, I charge $7.99 plus disbursements, I understand exactly what it is that I'm charging to a penny, inclusive of all disbursements. Not only am I making my profit, but I've put in a 30% premium to boot. And I've done that because I am disclosing to them exactly what they will pay to the penny. And they so like that, and they so crave that, and because I've properly identified what it is that they want, that they're willing to pay it. Now, you may disagree. You may say I'm full of baloney. Fine, no problem. I'm speaking only from my own experience. Perhaps one of you wants to comment now and say, listen, this isn't my experience to date. I've tried to do this. Great, try it. I'm very interested to hear your answer. But I deal with a lot of lawyers every single day, and almost no lawyers that I know actually bother to do all-inclusive pricing. And all-inclusive pricing, by the way, doesn't need to only exist in our area. It's easier in our area, particularly if you're in transactional residential real estate, where the costs and the transactions are so well known. A bit harder in commercial, even harder in litigation. And there's some people who do it for litigation, but only do it for segments of litigation. You know, I'm waiting for the person to crack litigation as a whole. Just say, listen, I'm ready to put a cost on litigation, period. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Mark, you're on drugs. You're thinking you're absolutely on drugs. I've done litigation. It varies wildly. Again, that's not the way statistics work. Over the course of your career, there is an average cost to file. And if you put a 30% premium over the course of your career, you will make 30% more than you would if you do your existing billing rates. That's just math. Don't argue against it. Try it. You will be surprised. It will work. It works for me. I make a significant amount per file to a point where, because I have cracked price predictability, I live a good life. I'm not saying you guys don't live a good life. I'm not saying you guys don't do well. I'm saying I'm giving a talk on pricing and objections. And the very first thing you need to understand is that answering price is not answering your client's objection. And if you do answer their objection, which is price predictability, you can go for a 30% premium over what you're making today. It is a hugely powerful insight. I'm going to pause. Does anyone have any questions? You may wonder what's on the screen here, by the way. What this is what I'm telling you is the basic model of insurance, where your pricing, all that insurance is the chance of something happening, plus a premium, which is where the insurance companies make all their money. The premium is the price. Now, why are people paying a premium? Well, if it's a calamitous event, they buy it because they suffer huge disadvantage if something happens. But a lot of people buy insurance for things like their computer at Best Buy or their Apple iPhone, things they could replace by themselves. Why are they buying insurance? Because they don't like the unpredictability of knowing that their phone may die or their computer may drop, even though they can afford a brand new one. They're paying a premium 30% above what Apple's costs are so that they can buy insurance for predictability. Consumers show this every single freaking day in every single different venue. And only lawyers are unable to grasp price predictability. Your realtor cousins have grasped it. Your lawyers have not. Please adopt pricing models that are Law Society compliant, that fully disclose what you're going to charge the client, but that give predictability, and then price more. Make a living at this. You went through law school. You've gone through hell. You employ staff. You deserve it. Any questions on this part so far?
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Josh.
How are you doing?
I've been well. It's
So,
been a while.
so I know. So, like you, I do this exact model. I do all-in prices. I sell people on price predictability. I find you're right. You could do a premium at the lower end of the pricing model, the first-time home buyers, the lower end properties. I find when you get to properties, call it 2 million, 3 million plus, the price gets too high and they don't care anymore about price predictability, and that's where I'm starting to lose everybody.
Totally.
Do you see the
Totally.
same thing?
You're totally right. Can you wait on that question? Because I'm going to address it. I promise you. I'm ready to go, Josh. I'm prepared for your question.
Alrighty.
All right. Yeah. If I haven't addressed it by the end, let me know. And then I'll buy the next one at United Dairy. Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. Any other questions so far? Just on regards to the pricing and the predictability premium? We cool? Okay. Seems we're cool. All right. Critical insight 2. We, as lawyers, suck at decommoditizing our product offering. We are terrible at it. Now, Josh, I know you've heard me speak about some of this before, so you'll permit me. But by the way, this is ChatGPT. It's supposed to be competence, but I just noticed now that it made it compliance. I guess we have to upgrade to ChatGPT 5.0. So anyways, I asked them to produce a law firm called Goldstein Baker LLP, Trust and Competence You Can Trust. Because that to me sounds like a lot of the law firms that every one of us runs. And truthfully, Goldstein Baker LLP has the effect of making your mom really, really proud. You've done a great job, guys. She put you through school. Mom is smiling, and she's telling all of her friends that you're a lawyer. Way to go. But, and had this been spelled properly again, I probably should have looked at this before I did my chat GPTs last night. But if you call your firm the Negotiators, it's not about making mom proud, but that certainly has more efficacy in the marketplace. Let's examine why for a minute. I mean, beyond the obvious, like I'm just going to set aside the obvious. This isn't what this is about right now, but eventually, if you want to sell your law firms sell at ridiculously low multiples. And part of the reason for that is that every single time Goldstein and Baker choose to retire, people say, where's Goldstein and where's Baker? I want them from my firm. Whereas if you're called the Negotiators, it's easier to differentiate yourself and actually become something larger than your own person. That's not what today's about. We'll talk about that after. But, and Josh, this is taken from a different session I did. So the next 3 slides I think you're familiar with, but I'm going to just go into it. But it also allows you to better define your own product. And here I'm going to go into a bit of branding because lawyers do not brand. Lawyers do not understand branding, thus trust and competence as the words. What do trust and competence mean? Are trust and competence good words to brand your firm? I know that what you think people want is a trustworthy, competent lawyer. Similar to what you think that they want is low prices. But actually, that's actually a default expectation. That is to say, you can call trust competence, but every other lawyer is marketing themselves as trustworthy and competent. Otherwise, you wouldn't be putting millions of dollars in their bank account. You obviously believe your lawyer to be trustworthy and competent regardless of where you go, even though some of them are not, as we are all aware. And as a result, all you're doing by saying trust and competence you can trust is effectively negating the ability to brand yourself as something distinct. And the ability to brand yourself as something distinct is something that law firms need to start using. When you see the Apple Sigma, it's about more than computers. It's about functionality, design, and simplicity. There's an ethos that extends to Apple that does not extend to its competitors. When you think of Walt Disney, it's different than going to the Paramount movie set or park. It's different than going to the Noah's Ark park. It's about a magical family-friendly adventure. It's distinct. If you say, I want a magical adventure for a theme park, there's only one you're going to. It is Disney. Rolex is about luxury, expensive, and lifestyle. Access, when I run it, was about accessibility, affordability, and convenience. All of these things are differentiators beyond what the competition is doing. And if you want to charge premiums, and Josh, this is starting into where you're going, but you're going to see I'm going to go into it a lot more shortly. If you want to differentiate your product and continue to differentiate as you move into the higher levels, you need to offer a product value that is different than your peers. You need to decommoditize. So how does one do that? Well, the first thing to note is that if you're choosing a brand, that you actually live your values and that your brand is congruent. I just find branding very interesting. So I'm just going to go off on a little bit of a tangent and just point out, I don't know how many of you have ever seen the little arrow that is in the negative space. You see this white where my cursor is? Right? That arrow is not unintentional, guys. That's the whole reason that they selected this. FedEx was selected this brand. It's because what does the arrow connote? Well, it's getting from one position to the other. We read English from left to right. Thus, the arrow is denoting the delivery of product. It's a beautifully succinct thing. Unless you think that that's a mistake, Arabic reads things right to left. Take a look. You see the same negative arrow. You see the same negative space. The arrow is going that way. It's very intentional. Of course, the person who, solidified the brand world and did probably the best out of anyone is Amazon, because not only do they have their arrow similar to FedEx, but the arrow creates a smile, makes you happy, and they're delivering everything from A to Z. You notice how in a single brand, they are denoting every single thing that they do? Brilliant, brilliant stuff, branding. And figuring out who you are is critical, because branding for lawyers is something, and here's where part two comes in, is something your peers don't do. Lawyers don't brand. Drives me nuts, but they don't brand. And branding allows you to charge more. Let's take a look at some brands that I thought up last night. Take a look. Can you imagine if instead of Diamond and Diamond, let's use personal injury if you want. They literally had pictures of people standing over people with baseball bats saying, "We negotiate." It's funny, but it also speaks to what people want. When you turn to someone who's been aggrieved in a personal injury lawsuit or even in a small claims, what they actually want is justice, even beyond money sometimes. Justice, that's the concept. Playing to that and saying, we appreciate that is important. Now, what happens if you are in a tough negotiation for a real estate deal? You may want to term as I said, you may want to term your whole firm the Negotiators. And if you term yourself that, wouldn't this be a brilliant ad? Why? Well, because Mark Morris runs legalclosing.ca. There's nothing distinct about that. I mean, there's ways I make it distinct, but for now, if you just approach it on the top, something distinct about that. Or if there's, I don't know, whatever it is, whatever Goldstein law, there's nothing distinct about that. But I need someone who can negotiate. I need someone who can negotiate hard. Well, the Negotiators LLP exists, and look at their ads. They're clearly going to be on my side. Now, the question is, if they have a higher price, but I'm in a negotiation, will I pay it? And the answer is yes. Because what you're doing is you're decommoditizing your product offering. You're saying, I'm not like the other lawyers. I negotiate for a living. I negotiate hard. It drives me flipping. I'm gonna ask you guys to just volunteer for a second. We're only amongst us lawyers. Who here has excess insurance? Who pays for excess insurance? Bob, you do. Bob, can I ask you something? Can you unmute yourself for a second? And I'm not trying to pick on you, but I'm about to. Bob, you have excess. I do too. Have you ever advertised your excess insurance?
Never.
Never. Bob, how much do you pay for excess insurance? You don't need to tell me, but it's several $1,000s a year. Bob alone, because I'm assuming no one else has it. I'm working on that assumption. I'm sure someone else has it here, but let's just work on the assumption that Bob's the only one of us that has it. Bob, you alone have the ability to say that you are insured for property values over $1 million, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. Why the frig are you not advertising that? How in the world are you not going to every high-end broker in the city and saying, unlike those schmo lawyers, have you asked them if they have actual insurance above? Because I do. I'm insured for $4 million. So give me your deals, because as much as you like those guys, I'm insured. How have you not done that? How have you not thought to do that? If you're doing this, you're a high-end lawyer by definition. How are you not advertising that, Bob? How are you not making advantage of the monies you're putting in? You get back your fees in 3 minutes. And by the way, and here's the critical component, when someone turns to you at $3 million and says, why should I use you? This guy is there. Say, because I'm freaking insured for your $3 million purchase. And I guarantee you, someone who's paying $10 million and here's your insured for $10 million in insurance does not mind paying you $15,000 for the file. They don't care. They're paying $10 million in cash. They do not care. And if you can give them a reason to pay $15,000, which reason is I'm insured and you're protected, they will pay it. But Bob, you've never advertised this, not once in your life.
No. And what's curious is the banks have never asked me if I'm doing, say, a $3 million purchase with a $2 million mortgage. None of the big banks have asked me if I'm.
And no bank will, but no bank is on your side, and no bank cares if you make money. This is between us lawyers saying, how do we make money with the public? And I'm saying to you, Bob, you have invested in excess and you are not advertising it. And you can take the entirety of every one of our lunches, because every one of us is not insured. I'm just assuming, like I'm just making an assumption, but that's actually probably true. 1 in every 30 lawyers has excess insurance. So freaking eat their lunches. Every one of them is dealing with deals over $1 million. Why are you not advertising yourself as the insured lawyer for mortgage for properties up to 10 million? Why are you not doing that, Bob? You should be taking all that business.
I'll be doing it as of Tuesday morning. But
right.
My question remains, why does the bank not say to the client, we're lending you for $1 million. We require that you retain a lawyer who has excess insurance?
Well, I'll tell you, from my perspective, I don't care. And because now you're in my playground. When lawyers get together, they have a tendency to discuss what should happen and the best process and the way we can collectively make our profession better. But this talk today is about how we make money at our price points individually.
Yep.
This is pure greed. I don't care why the banks do what they do. I care that Bob takes from this lecture that he should be going to Barry Cohen today and saying, Barry, I am insured for this amount. Freaking use me. Is your lawyer? Have you ever even checked? No? Well, I can do this. And suddenly, your bills of $20,000 net after expenses for a purchase suddenly start being justifiable because you've decommoditized yourself, Bob. You've done something. You're a different lawyer than everyone else. By the way, not to say that no one else has excess. I carry excess as well. But I'm saying if I carried excess, I sure as shit wouldn't look at that as protection. I'd look at that as marketing. Right? And differentiating your product gives you a natural advertising edge. Some of you may have heard that social media is big these days amongst the kids. If you choose to put a single dollar into Google, Facebook, or whatever it is, understand that the more perfect the marketplace, the less the results. If you go ahead and advertise real estate lawyer, good luck to you. For every dollar you put in, you're going to get back $1 and maybe 1 cent back, because it's a near perfect marketplace. That's what happens. Yes, it will appear that $3 is coming back for every dollar you advertise, but once you factor in the excess costs and the extra staff you need and everything else, it's a near perfect marketplace. But that's not true of the term real estate negotiators, is it? Because very few people have differentiated themselves to become real estate negotiators, have called themselves the negotiators. That's not true of luxury real estate sales, is it, Bob? Where ultimately white glove service is being offered, and I have insurance for this. And by the way, I'll give you another hint. We'll talk about it in a second. Or excess real estate insurance. I'm a real estate lawyer with excess insurance. No one is buying that search term. Every dollar you spend gets 10 as a result. And the people who will come in through those searches are ready to pay the premiums. This is from a previous slide that I once did. It's just showing the economics of how it's just a basic supply demand graph. It basically shows how where there's less people who are demanding the keyword for, say, luxury real estate services or sales, the more bang you get for your buck. All right, so that's critical insight 2. Let's talk about critical insight 3. The normal and this here is to answer every one of your questions, because every question that I'm going to turn to in a minute is going to say, but Mark, when I try to tell people that I charge this, they walk away. How many of you know what a Galton board is? Anybody know what a Galton board is? Okay, I'm going to show you what a Galton board is. Just give me a second, please. I'm gonna make this a very interactive presentation where I do a Galton board on YouTube. Let's do a Galton board together. Let's see. Is this good? Yeah, this is perfect. Okay, let me share this. So I'm gonna share Galton board. Let me just a second. Almost there, guys. Hold tight. All right. This is a Galton board. It's a mathematical demonstration that shows when you dump everything from the top, it is a mathematical certainty that a normal distribution will arise. Even though you can go left or right, every ball can go left or right, it all falls within a normalized distribution every single time. It's called the Galton board. And the normal distribution, again, because lawyers don't take statistics and often therefore have trouble with these types of concepts. And by the way, I would encourage everyone to take a statistics course. It's incredibly boring, but it is very important. A normal Galton board effectively produces the normal distribution. And the normal distribution is something we see in pretty much every aspect of life. What it means is there is within any normal group of people, the vast majority of people will be just to the left of center and just to the right of center, and then there will be outliers. It is the case in this circled area that I have that the vast majority of people who are constantly looking for cheaper and will not go with you fall within this distribution. The people who are sitting there and absolutely looking for the bottom price for everything, they exist. They exist. They're approximately 10% of the population. You as lawyers, like everyone else, have to be prepared to accept that 10% loss. Because so long as you're pricing to the middle of the market, you're going to lose 10%. The goal is not to chase the 10%. The goal is to remember that under the Galton board, under the normalized distribution, fully 70% of people reside here. And if you are excess insured, Bob, you're over there. And this affects your pricing model. There is a critical component that you need to be aware of in pricing your products where you need to be prepared to accept loss. I get it. Lawyers are not necessarily well off. Lawyers come out indebted from school. Lawyers cannot afford sometimes to let go of files, and they chase this. But every single time someone hears you're too expensive, it's incumbent upon you to ask. It's incumbent upon you to ask.
Not be available till at least 12.
It's incumbent upon you to ask, are you coming from this portion of the distribution? Or are you, the client who's telling me this, coming from this portion or this portion? And what am I, as a firm, trying to hit? I know what I'm trying to hit, guys. I'll share with you. I'm trying to hit this sweet spot, this line here. I try to go between this 13.5 and 34%. What does that mean? That means that my allowance for people who want to walk away from price is this full amount. It means about 50% of people may walk away because I'm targeting this. Actually, 50% don't walk away. There's other reasons for that. My walk away rate remains 10%, and I'm here at this pricing level. But understanding that pricing level and understanding the normalized distribution and being ready to take loss and figuring out that someone is actually part of this so that it doesn't rock your world so that you revisit your pricing and suddenly reprice lower because two people have come to you and said, oh, I'm not paying you, you're too expensive, is a critical component of business, not law, business, because this Pareto distribution exists. It exists for every freaking business, including law. And only lawyers are sitting there trying to chase down every single party and saying, oh my God, you want it cheaper? I'll go cheaper. When someone asks me, I want it cheaper, I make a decision right then and there. I often say no. And I often say, I have a friends and family discount because you're coming from X. I'm going to give you $100 off. I do that because in the event that they say, no, you're still too expensive, I don't want them as a client anyways. I mean, frankly, between you and I, they're usually the hardest clients to deal with to begin with, but also because I'm very confident in where I sit on this distribution and this scale. And so it helps and I understand it. Knowing who you are and who you sell to is critical because you sell only to that audience. It's interesting. Rolls-Royce stopped appearing at car shows a couple of years ago because they realized their audience isn't actually at car shows. Their audience is at yacht and plane expos. They only exhibit their cars now at yacht and plane expos because they know who their audience is. Every segment has its niche. And if you can become an expert in that niche, that means being able to cater to that niche, which is worth $1 premium. So let's talk about some examples. Let's say one of you takes this talk and says, you know what? I'm going to become a high-end lawyer. I'm going to get insured. Well, Bob, what else do you need to do in conjunction with your insurance for a high-end lawyer? Well, you should be going to Barry Cohen or Sam McDaddy or whoever it is you want, whoever's out there. And you should be saying, not only am I insured and your lawyers aren't doing it, but I'll pay the land transfer tax in advance. And they're going to say, well, what does that mean? You're going to say, it means that their price won't come up on the land registry because I know your business and your business is privacy and half of the deals you're doing aren't appearing on MLS. And the fact that they're appearing on the land registry is anathema to my high-end buyers. And so I, as a service, because I'm charging you $20,000, you want to know what my difference is? A, I'm insured for your thing. And B, I'm going to pay your land transfer tax in advance so that it doesn't appear on the land registry, which I know how to do and other lawyers don't. Go ask your lawyer if he knows how to pay the land transfer tax in advance. He doesn't, because I'm a high-end lawyer. That's who I am. I'm Bob. And that's why you come to me. And that's why I charge my premium. Sports lawyers. We used to work for, actually, we still do a whole lot of sports teams. I don't know why. When you get one sports player, they all tell their friends, and suddenly you have the whole Raptors in front of you, and it's fun. It's a fun part about being a lawyer, I must say. We did that for music for a long time as well. Anyways, what do people in sports world want? They don't care about price at all, at all. What they want is privacy and flexibility. It is the case that every single sports person that I've ever had, every person from the NBA, every single person from the MLS, every single person from the NHL has cared that I meet with them at 10 p.m. at night. I don't know why. It's always 10 p.m. at night. And by the way, for music, it's always 8 in the morning. What is with 8 in the morning? I don't get it. 8 in the morning for music, 10 p.m. at night for sports. The fact that I know it means that I'm the sports lawyer. I'm going to concentrate on sports teams, exclusivity. I'll come to you, white glove service. I'll deliver your keys because you're away for a week practicing in Boston. And as a result, the keys are something you care about. I will deliver them to you when next you're in Toronto, whatever. But that's the reason I'm charging my premium. Condo lawyers. What do people want in condo land? Status reviews. I need to bring my offers. I need to do my status reviews. Don't worry, I'll do all your status reviews for free within 2 hours. I have 5 staff. I have put them on. Here's the email. Done, finished. I'm going to get it done. Some of you are familiar with the fact that I run legal review. That's predicated upon that. We get a ridiculous amount of business every single day from legal review because I promise people status reviews in 2 hours. Boom. Which is different than other lawyers that say, I'll get back to you in 10 days, which doesn't work, or 5 days. It doesn't work for condo people. Residential lawyers, you got to have after-hour sign-up. These people are working 9 to 5. If you sit there and advertise yourself as a residential lawyer, advertise that your sign-up times are in the evening. Be different. Why are you charging this? Because we have freaking evening hours. People will pay it. So my high level points, you don't need to contact me. You guys are all competing for business, but whatever, if you want to, here it is. My high level points here, guys, are firstly, it is critical that you understand what customers mean, not what they say. And what they mean is price predictability for which you can charge a premium. Secondly, you need to brand yourself. You need to know who you are. And you need to actually concentrate in that space to decommoditize the service offering that so many people believe is intrinsically the same. And third, you have to be prepared to accept loss based on where you are in the Pareto distribution. Once you do that, and once you have some confidence, and once you go out there and try this, I guarantee you, not only will you be more successful over time, but you'll also make a really good living. It is possible to make a very good living in law. But you have to, if you are making $200-300 per deal, what are you doing? You've gone through law school. What are you doing? Why are you in this game? We are in this game to be paid fairly for our work, not to extort people, to be paid fairly. We have gone through 8 years of school. There is a host of liability we take on. You are entitled to be paid. Realtors, sometimes only showing a washroom in the sky once, are making 5% and $40,000, $50,000. You are doing a lot of work per file. You are entitled to be paid for it. And you are entitled, and your clients are entitled to understand the value you bring to the table, which value will not be demonstrated unless you demonstrate it to them, which is what today has been about. So that's really all I have to say. I hope that our particular industry can get our act in order and actually start charging properly for these files. When you do, you'll find that every day you go to work is immensely profitable, immensely rewarding, and you are able to do a better job. Your staff are well paid, and everyone is happy around you. So my wish to you is that you internalize these. For what it's worth, maybe I've been totally wrong. Maybe I'm off base, but I don't think I am. I hope you internalize these lessons. I hope you bring them to your firm. And I hope we collectively as a profession start valuing our own work and bringing true value to our customers based on our chosen expertise. I'm going to open it up to questions. Is that it? No questions. Okay. Seems we're good. What can I tell you? Anyone else? Just I'll give one last chance. You can just unmute yourself and speak if you want. Go ahead, Bob.
How do you deal with realtors who price shop for their clients? I.e., I can send you a lot of business if you will do it for X.
I don't ever bother. Again, it's the Pareto distribution. Well, actually, that's not true. I always look at that as a challenge. I look at them and I say, my fee is my fee. And I'm very proud of my pricing. I say to them, I try to price in the 50th to 60th percent. I'm very honest with people, always. I never, ever, ever lie in the course of my business, ever. I say to people, I try to price in the 50th to 60th percentile of my business, and I'm well worth it. I have 25 years experience with tens of thousands of deals under my belt. And at the end of the day, customer service is something that I have prioritized as a transactional measure, and our staff know how to deliver it properly. You will not ever get a complaint for referring to our firm, and I will put my guarantee on that. And generally, if you come back at them with something like that, they in turn will either recognize in which case they will use you every time and they will not care what your prices are, or they won't understand what you're saying at all, in which case you do not want them or their client base because they're not mature enough in business to understand the value prop that you're talking about. They are on the distribution side that you do not want to touch, or at least that I've identified I don't want to touch. Some people can. I mean, we at one point in access law, we had identified, not anymore, but early in our career, we identified that was the niche we wanted to target. Like, I'm not saying don't target it. I'm saying understand where you target. And then if someone isn't meeting that criteria, boom, you're gone. I understand you're part of that percent. We're good. Speaks to realtors as much as it does clients.
Thank you.
No problem. Anything else? No.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I missed it, but there was a question about how to price for high purchase prices, like 5 million and up.
So without, yeah, sorry, perhaps you did. So maybe I wasn't clear actually. So let me just go over it one more time. Price predictability only goes so far, which is what we were talking about. To go beyond, say, $2 million for price predictability, I find usually I can get up to about 2.5 on my pricing scale, and then I have to start attenuating. You have to tell people why you're worth it. It's not just I'm giving you price predictability. There has to be a larger reason, a larger ethos to use the firm. Generally, if you're at the plus $3 million claim, then you're dealing with high-end clients. And what you need to do is you need to be able to immediately say, listen, here's the reason you're going to use me. A, I'm insured for it. B, I am going to give you anonymity on the land registry through the payment of land transfer tax. C, I'm going to be available to you throughout. And you want someone with my experience because this is an incredibly large process. And as you start speaking to them and giving them these reasons, suddenly you're a high-end lawyer. And at that point, yes, you may not be able to charge the exact premium per dollar, but you can still charge a huge premium because you've differentiated your service offering from your guy down the street. Frankly, the insurance alone should do it. Anyone who is actually at a $3 or $4 million purchase price should respect the fact that you have insurance and other people do not. By the way, everyone should be getting excess insurance. Like, if you don't have excess insurance, clamber on that train because it is the greatest marketing vehicle ever. Forget about the reason that you want to be sued. Like, you should have it. But beyond that, it's just the greatest marketing ever. Ever. I had a thing of Marsh excess insurance on my website when I was with Marsh. I should put it back. I don't advertise legal closing strangely very well right now. But why not? Why aren't you doing that? It's better than top tier lawyer as rated by some organization you paid $5,000 to for a fictitious award. By the way, that actually happens. We were actually elected to what was it? The Consumer Choice Awards. You know, that one that's always on the bus. One day someone came to us. I wrote them. I'm like, why don't you have consumer law firm as a category? And the very next year they wrote me and they're like, congratulations, you've won the consumer law category. Pay us $5,000 and you can advertise it. And we did actually, I think, pay them that time. We put it on the website and the Law Society shut us down. They said that's not a real award, which was very true. So they were right to do that particular one. Any other questions, guys? Oh, here, Wesley. I Google them, find a picture with their car, remind them that they drive a Lexus or a BMW, not a Nissan. So why are they so focused on the price of legal services? Wes, can I tell you why that's actually not necessarily the best of approaches? Oh, did you disagree?
I was being sarcastic.
Yeah, the reason you don't want to do that is because you're not answering their concern, right? Their concern is I don't understand the difference, not I won't pay for a difference, right? And so when you're sitting there saying, well, you drive a car, they already understand the difference between the cars. What you need to do is you need to explain to them why you're a Lexus. That's the critical component, right? And Andrea writes, thanks, Mark. I'm rethinking my whole approach after this. I'm my worst enemy when it comes to pricing. Must put my business hat on rather than worry the next lawyer undercutting me. Agreed, Andrea. That's exactly right. And if you have any questions as you kind of do that, feel free to call me anytime. Yes, Wes.
So, drawing on your MBA background, Mark, one of the things I recall from being a young lawyer, part of the paranoia is when a realtor says to you, the lawyer down the street's only charging $700. I actually have no idea if that's true or not. And for everyone's benefit, I practice in Brampton where lawyers will cut your throat for $50. Is there, or has there ever been, or is there somewhere we could go in our own local markets, a way to figure out what is the market price? Like is there, there are consultants in various retail fields that'll tell you what everyone's charging for a VCR. Is there a service we can call on to say, just basically do a price comparison report for you?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to ask other people. But Wes, can I just hammer you for 1 second, just because
Go
we're
ahead.
amongst friends for a second? I have huge sympathy for you being in Brampton. I really do, because Brampton is the most price throat cutting place there is for pricing. But I have less sympathy for you still using that excuse after we've all gone virtual, because frankly, we're all in Brampton now. Keep that in mind. There's very few people who ask even where I'm located. They just ask, are you virtual? And that means that they're coming from Brampton, and they're coming from Oakville, and they're coming from Sudbury, and they're coming from everywhere else. Keep in mind that your particular problem has been, to a degree, removed through virtualization of real estate, if you are smart about it. I'm not saying to you you aren't smart about it. I know the struggles, and you are totally correct because most of your client base remains Brampton based because of your traditional setup. I totally get it, but I'm saying to you, it doesn't need to be that way, particularly with virtualization of real estate. Keep that in mind.
But my question wasn't necessarily for me in a general sense. It was, and I've had this discussion with a lot of lawyers. And one of the other lawyers who asked a question here was talking about, when the agent comes to you and says, will you do it for X dollars? The working group has this published, they've published, this is how you should price yourself, and this is how you can compare it to the HST. I think we're all familiar with that. The question is more, how do we realistically, if we're interested in approaching it from this angle, how do we realistically find out what our competition is charging?
Well, I'm going to open it up after I give this answer, which is this. I think part of the reason that it's so hard to discover that is because the competition doesn't actually reveal what it's charging. Everyone just reveals what their legal fee is. They don't reveal their disbursements, and there's a common perception out there that disbursements can be gussied, and that they're different as you go from lawyer to lawyer. And as a result, I don't think that there's any real way to actually figure out what people's pricing is, because what consumers care about is the end price, not the amount the lawyer is taking home. And all we're quoting to one another is the amount the lawyer is taking home, which isn't true in any event. I don't know how you would find that out. I don't have a good answer. Maybe someone else does, but I'm just pointing out to you that same lack of it. I would work on the assumption in my day-to-day business practice that when someone says that they have a price, they don't actually understand the price, and simply getting back to them and saying, listen, it's great. You may believe you have that price, but disbursements haven't been worked in, and I'm giving you the all-in disbursement price, so there's certainty, and they are not. That is usually enough in my business to tip them over the edge of using me. That's all I can really tell you about that. If someone else has a better answer than that for Wes, please pipe in, because we're all living this experience.
Yeah, and for everyone's benefit, I haven't competed on price in the entire time that since I opened my firm in 2009. So
Sorry, Wes, I don't have a better suggestion or answer than what I provided. I'm sorry. It's a tough question you're asking.
Fair enough.
Anything else, guys? We have 5 more minutes. Nope. Okay. Well, guys, listen, pleasure. It's always nice speaking to colleagues as opposed to real estate agents. It really is, like, genuinely. It's actually very nice. It's very nice having the opportunity. And, you know, I must tell you, of the people who are online and contribute daily, I'm appreciative of everyone's expertise, everyone's professionalism, everyone's experience. So thank you sincerely to every one of you for attending. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the field of practice. We're calling
Thanks,
it.
Mark.